Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Creatrix Conversations. Yay! I am so excited to be back with you this month with a solo show talking about 10 essential practices for light workers to thrive. So I'm really going to dive into 10 of what I think are the most essential practices for those of us who have chosen the path of the light worker so that we can really thrive in our daily life, thrive in our work, thrive in our relationships, really, and thriving in the path and the channel that we feel so called to be a part of and bringing forth our gifts. So wonderful. Welcome. If you're watching the replay, please also say hi. And first, if you're new to this community in Awaken the Goddess Within, welcome. My name is Flora Ware, and it's been my pleasure and my honor to be the hostess of this sacred online space since 2016. And I am a ceremonial priestess, a sacred musician, a cyclic living teacher, and I'm also a vocal coach and marketing mentor for spiritual entrepreneurs. And I help spiritual entrepreneurs become confident speakers, and I coach them on speaking and business strategy because I'm passionate about supporting other light workers in their sacred business. And so that's why as I was intuitively feeling into the topic for this month's Creatrix Conversations, with us in the Northern Hemisphere, we're coming into summer solstice. And another older name for this is Litha. Litha, it's the Anglo-Saxon name for midsummer, for the summer solstice. So especially for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, June is really a season of increasing light. And so I really wanted to dive into this topic because it's a beautiful time of year for us to really do our light work and amplifying our light work in the world. Hello. I see sisters are joining live. Please say hi. And to begin, I really want to start with defining what a light worker is. And I'd also like to start by asking you, whether you're on live or you're watching the replay, to put in the comments, please, whether you consider yourself a light worker. Do you consider yourself a light worker, or is that a title that you're not too sure of? You know, that's not one that you really have adopted for yourself. I want to define this term because certainly nowadays it's an often used term, especially in the spiritual and new age communities, you know, light worker, work your light, all of that. And my definition of light worker is pretty much identical to what the wonderful author Rebecca Campbell defines a light worker in this way. For those of us who choose to be a bright light in the world, we are choosing the path of the light worker. A light worker is anyone who decides to answer the call of spirit versus the call of ego. A light worker is anyone who wants to be of service, who wants to devote their lives to something bigger in the world. And I remember reading that definition. I can't remember now I read Rise, Sister Rise first. It's a wonderful book, but her earlier book, Light is the New Black. I remember when I first read that definition, it was maybe one of the first times that I felt like I could really resonate with that term for myself. So my personal story or experience was that when I first started hearing light worker, I wasn't too sure about it for myself. It felt a little like a bit kitschy, a bit like new age, and a bit too new agey. And I think for me, what it was is that that term seemed to only focus on the light, right? So I was projecting a sense of spiritual bypassing by only focusing on the light. Now, I've talked also at lengths at different times in here about spiritual bypassing, but the truth is that to be a light worker is also to be a shadow worker. And what's really important is that I really want to make clear is that you can be a light worker in any profession that you have, any life role, right? You can bring joy and an elevated vibration. You can bring that light anywhere you are, in anything that you do. Light workers are meant to bring light to the world because the light worker's soul is what's illuminated. And light workers understand that their presence is what matters. It's not the profession. It's not how you're sharing that. There's no, I mean, in a genuine sacred space and sacred understanding, like there's no hierarchy of light workers, right? Like the light worker that is like the master Reiki teacher and practitioner and has like, you know, hundreds of thousands of social media followers, you know, like as if that light worker is better or doing more important work in the world than the light worker who is a stay-at-home mom and a housewife and raising her children in such a conscious way and like volunteers in the community, right? So I really want to get that clear right off the bat. Hello and welcome. So great to see you joining live. Please say hi. And I also asked the question, do you consider yourself a light worker or not? So because light workers are naturally inclined towards unity, light workers are very intuitive and empathic. You can be a light worker in any profession, in any role. That's really, really important that I wanted to start us off with today. And if you're joining today and you are like me and have felt some resistance to the term, you know, I welcome that. Today I'm going to talk about 10 essential practices. All right? And 5 of them are for anybody and everybody that considers themselves a light worker. And then the second set of 5 practices are specific for light workers in business, spiritual entrepreneurs who are doing their light work through a business. So, but let's start with the practices that are for everyone, okay? The number 1 essential practice that I recommend for light workers is daily grounding. Grounding. And again, this is another term that can be used a lot, but isn't always understood. The practice of grounding your energy can be done in many different ways. But it's a practice of becoming conscious of your energy and using that intention and that awareness in your consciousness to center and ground. And the 2 places that I usually recommend that you want to ground into is to really ground into your body, your physical body, right? Light workers can often be very like putting the energy out, right? Out there in the world, out to other people, giving. You want to ground your energy back into you. And again, I said there's many different ways you can do this, but even like what I'm doing here, touching yourself, squeezing your arms, giving your thighs a squeeze, really becoming present to feeling your feet on the ground. If you can get out in nature, even better, like earthing and grounding. That's the first place that I recommend that people get really competent and comfortable grounding their energy into their bodies, okay? And then the second source that you want to plug into, to ground into, is of course our earth. And I just mentioned earthing, that as often as possible, if you can be barefoot on the earth, or or you can sit with your back against a tree, or you can go for a walk and you're really present to nature and to plug into that incredible energy source. So grounding, first and foremost, is so important. So I wonder if any of you are recognizing that you've been neglecting your daily grounding practice. And if you can, it's okay, right? No judgment here. But this is your reminder of how important this practice is for you as a light worker. And remember, these are essential practices for you as a light worker to thrive. It's not, these aren't just practices for, to you feel okay every day. No, this is for you to thrive. So daily grounding, really important. Number 2 is energy hygiene. Again, daily energy hygiene. You need to get into a regular practice of cleaning, right? The hygiene of your energy. And this, I recommend, is done before bed every night. And sometimes, on some days, maybe multiple times throughout the day. And if you find yourself extra sensitive, or again, like I said, if you're going through a lot in a day, you might need to make it more of a twice a day practice. But at minimum, before bed every night, take a few minutes and do your energy hygiene. And what I mean by that is like clearing or cleansing your aura, cutting any attachments, or just like really like making sure that you're not holding on to anything that isn't yours, right? Other people's energies, other people's moods, right? And once again, this can be done in many different ways. You can use crystals. You can use sacred smoke. You can use Reiki, right? Or even just like what I was doing. Like, I love this process where I just visualize and I clean out my aura. Like almost combing with my fingers and cleaning out my aura. And then I'm combining that with a centering and grounding practice. And I do this in like 2 minutes before bed every night. Sometimes I need longer, but it doesn't need to take a lot of time. But it's an essential practice. Now, I'd love to hear from some of you also in the comments. Like, what's your favorite way to ground? What's your favorite way to take care of your energy hygiene? Because it can be done in many different ways, and maybe you haven't heard one that I've suggested that really resonates with you, but maybe you'll find one if someone else shares. Sister shares, I typically just go into a meditation or straight to working. Yeah, I wonder if you mean... like when you go into your own practice, are you really taking care of your energy first, grounding, centering, clearing your energy, or do you just go into the working? I'm here to work, right? Yeah, I witness you. Yeah. Showering is my favorite way to cleanse my energy. Yes. And of course, it does double duty because we're cleansing our physical body, but we're also really cleansing ourselves energetically. And thank you for suggesting that, because years ago, I was introduced to the idea of a chakra shower. So when you stand with your head back and the stream can hit your crown chakra, and you just visualize that water cleansing your crown chakra, and then you lean forward and it hits the back of your third eye and the back of your throat and then the back of your heart, and you kind of do it from your back body, a chakra shower. So I love that. And another sister's, yes, also recommending barefoot walking and using mantra, Satarama, to calm the nervous system. So yes, so mudras, like even I just did this simple mudra, mantra, crystals, smoke. There's lots of different ways. So loving these suggestions. Keep them coming. Okay, number 3, the third essential practice. I'm still going through the practices that are for everyone. Number 3 is stop blaming or being a victim to your gifts. I'm sorry, but you gotta stop blaming your gifts or being a victim to your gifts if you want to thrive as a light worker. Have you heard, how many times have you heard yourself say or heard someone else say, like, I'm too sensitive, or I'm too empathic, or I can't go to those kinds of events because I just pick up on everyone's energy, or I'm a star seed, no one understands me, right? Like in that blaming of your gifts, being a victim to your gifts, you are disempowering yourself. And you're still playing the victim. Now, it's not that it's not true. You may feel energetically overwhelmed when you go to a big party or if you go to a certain kind of event. However, you can learn to protect yourself, and don't use that as an excuse to disempower yourself. You want to own your gifts. You want to celebrate your gifts while you also find ways to really people in the world. I know peopling can be hard. Adulting can be hard. But this is really, really important. This is really, really important because it's a way that we, still play the victim, even to our own lightworker gifts. And I'm challenging you today. I'm inviting you to stop. Stop blaming those gifts. Stop being a victim to the gifts that you have and really celebrate them instead, right? And use your gifts to make it, to make your life even better than it is, not limit your life, right? Similar to number 3, number 4 is to not bypass shadow healing. I spoke about this just briefly at the beginning, that initially my resistance to the term light worker was really its emphasis on the light, right? And we see this a lot. It's out there a lot. Spiritual bypassing in like the love and light, love and light, good vibes only, right? And if you've said those things, again, I'm not judging you. This is something, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, right? Of course we want good vibes only. Of course we want to spread and share love and light. But it's when it's to the exclusion of really looking and healing and being able to transform the shadow, that's when it becomes spiritual bypassing. Light workers, yes, are meant to bring the light. And they're meant to bring the light to our shadows. Most light workers are here to help us with trauma healing, that to help us recognize and undo our core wounds. And we bring our illuminated souls and our expanded capacity to hold the light, we bring that to the shadow healing. So we're shadow dancers, just as much as we're light workers. And I wrote a blog about this that I'm going to share in the comments. I'm going to share it afterwards. And in this blog, I really identify the 4 wounds that often hold us back as light workers. And so I'll share that later as an additional resource. But really, recognizing that the shadow work is just as important as the light work and how they're meant to work together, right? So don't bypass that. Okay, and number 5, the 5th practice, essential practice for light workers to thrive is to find or create a channel to be of service. Your light work needs an outlet, right? You need to have some way of expressing it in the world. And like I gave in the example earlier, it could be your family. It can be your kids. If that really feels like your outlet, it can be your garden. It can be your volunteering. It could be art. Of course, art is a wonderful channel, outlet. It could be in handicrafts. Right? This does not need to be a business. I want to make it clear, right? when I say that you need to find or create a channel to be of service, to express your light work in some way, it does not need to be a business. You can make those handicrafts, or you can make art, and you can just give them away if that's what you want to do. Not all light workers are meant to be in business. I mean, really, not everyone. That just goes for everyone. Only a few are really meant to be entrepreneurs. It's just how we're designed. There's nothing wrong with that. So, but find a channel, right? And if you're feeling that listlessness, or if you're feeling that stuckness, it's probably because you need some more expression. So find that. Find something that you want to volunteer for. Find a new kind of art you want to try. Start a garden. May I add that we can go to too far the other way and get lost in our shadow work, and it can be hard to find our way back to the light. Yes, sister. And that's another reason why in the month of Litha, in the month of June, I always really want to focus on amplifying my light in alignment with how the sun's light is at its peak. Because if I don't do that in like May, June, and July, I tend to focus on the shadow. But it's also remembering that we're doing our light work through the shadow work. Yeah. Okay, and number 6, I lied earlier. I actually have 6 essential practices that are for everyone, and then 4 that are specifically for entrepreneurs. For some reason, I thought that I divided it equally. But this is great because this is for everyone. Number 6, you need to have strong boundaries with people. Yeah. Anyone struggle with boundaries with people sometimes, right? You need to have strong boundaries with people, especially anyone who's an energy vampire in your life, especially with wounded people in your life that are not engaging in any healing of their own, right? So it's not just wounded people. We're all wounded. But those people who are really not doing any healing work of their own, and so they're just a low vibration, right? And again, we want to bring our light and love to those people, especially when they're family or close friends or a neighbor that we see, but not to get enmeshed in their story, not to get enmeshed with their wounds, not to let our energy and our light be siphoned by those energy vampires. So learning to have strong boundaries with people, that is self-honoring, right? It's a loving and honoring choice for yourself. It's true, the old expression that like a bright light attracts moths, but I don't think there's anything wrong with moths. Moths are lovely and wonderful, but the point of that expression is that, of course, when we are a bright light, we can, people that are drawn to us, and sometimes they want to start to like feed off of our light or our energy, and that can be okay for a while. And if you enter into a relationship like that consciously, it can be, it can still be healing, but this is really, really important. And I'm wondering how this is landing. Yeah, I really was. Yeah, getting better boundaries. And that can be just limiting the amount of time that you spend with them, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you need to cut someone out of your life, but limiting your time with them, knowing when to end the phone conversation, right? So stronger boundaries. Okay, so I'm going to recap these first 6 because these are the essential practices for everyone. So number 1, grounding your energy daily. Number 2, energy hygiene. Again, daily. Number 3, stop blaming your gifts or being a victim to your gifts. No more of that. Number 4, to stop bypassing shadow healing. To use your light and know that the light work and the shadow healing go together. So no more spiritual bypassing. Number 5, finding or creating a channel, an outlet to be of service or some outlet for your light work to be expressed and shared. This does not need to be a business, but some kind of outlet. And number 6, creating strong boundaries with people that drain your energy, right? And take more than they give back to you. So strong boundaries with people. So out of those 6, which one or two is really standing out to you today as, I need to work on that more? I'd love to hear in the comments which one or two of those 6 are really standing out. Okay, a sister sharing, loving this, also releasing the need for validation from those you are putting up boundaries with. Yeah, witnessing you, sister. And those boundaries are, like I said, loving for both them and for yourself. Especially if that's someone that you need to put boundaries around, they're not the person that you want validation. Okay, now the next 4, these are essential practices for any light workers who are in business, who have chosen the entrepreneurial path. And that opens up a whole new Pandora's box of of wonderful things and challenging initiations. All right. And I'm just going to keep on going. So number 7 here, really essential for you to do the healing work to identify and transmute your witch wound. And this is something I talk about a lot, right? And this is especially important for spiritual entrepreneurs, for light workers in business, to heal your witch wound, to really get to know how it's holding you back in your business. That's really the important thing for this. How is your witch wound holding you back in your business so that you can shift that? I don't know about you, but have you seen this Facebook ad going around from this guy who is sharing his trademarked process to help you heal the Lightworkers persecution imprint, I think he calls it, the Lightworkers persecution imprint. It was so funny when that ad first came across my screen because I looked at it for 3 seconds, then I was like, dude, it's called the witch wound. It's called the witch wound. But he's gone and trademarked the Lightworkers persecution imprint or something, and he has a trademark process. And I'm sure it's great. I'm not putting down this guy. I think it's awesome. But however, it's really interesting the connection that he's making around anyone who is being a light worker in the world, and certainly being a light worker in business, that this fear of persecution, this subconscious, irrational fear of persecution is really something that holds us back. So no work with your healing your witch wound, and like I said, with the end result of knowing how it's holding you back in your business. The next one, number 8, for spiritual entrepreneurs. Back to the strong boundaries. Strong boundaries on social media. Especially if you're running an online business, right? So that you're spending a lot of time online, a lot of time on social media. Really, just as important to have strong boundaries on your social media time as it is to have strong boundaries with certain people in your life. Okay? Some people ask me, how have you lasted this long running your business and being on Facebook so much without getting so, sick of social media and all that? I've been asked that frequently. I get asked that, how have I survived this long? Something like that. And it's because from day one, I've had strong boundaries on my social media time, really on my screen time in general. So I do a daily detox, what I call a daily detox, where it's no more screens after 6 p.m., really. Sometimes it's no screens after 4:30 or 5, when I'm done for the day. And maybe on a rare occasion, I might have a reason that I check my WhatsApp chat because I was waiting for someone to get back to. I might check that in the evening. But other than that, it's I go on social media like twice a day for short segments, and then that's it, right? And that's how I've survived. So especially if you're very empathic, sensitive, you kind of like that, reading that terrible thing on your feed is going to like throw off your day, right? Like that's happened to me. Boy, oh boy. Really important to have strong boundaries on your social media. So I shared that I have a daily practice of like not being on screens for the evening. I also have a weekly offline time where I'll check in on Saturday mornings. I don't really work on Saturdays usually, so I just maybe will check in on Saturday mornings, 15 minutes, and then I'm done. And I am not on social media until Monday. So that's like sometimes a good 48 hours every week, from like Saturday at noon until Monday at noon, for example, that I am not on social media. And I just know that this has really contributed to my ability to stay to stay excited about my business, to keep on showing up, because I'm not depleted and I'm not resentful and I'm not feeling like because as we grow in our businesses, it really is kind of insane how many people we feel connected to. Like I'm not going to say literally, but I am connected to thousands and thousands of people all around the world now that I never was before. And if I really like felt like I had a cord of attachment to like all of those, 5,000, 6,000, whatever, all these thousands of people, like that would be nuts. But I don't. Why? Because of my daily energy hygiene, my daily grounding, and my strong boundaries with people and with my strong boundaries of social media. And another sister is sharing, I've taken a long fast and I'm making a plan for how to return in a way that serves versus drains me. That's great, sister. So so I was going to say, I have a daily cutoff with that, right? Like the evening. I have a weekly time, offline time that's very clear. And also biannually, I know it sounds so organized, but it's really just happened with the season that at least for a week in the summer when I'm on family vacation, I'm offline. And for 2 weeks over the winter solstice, offline. And anyone who's been in this community now for a few years knows that we take a 13-day sacred pause from winter solstice and then heading into the new year. And this group is shut down. And when I started that practice a few years ago, that felt edgy. That felt radical. I was like, are people even going to come back to the group after I reopen it? Yep, they did. And so many people really appreciate that. So I want you to think in kind of that fractal of like having those bigger chunks of time offline, or the fasting that someone recommended it. Look at that at your year, but then weekly, what's your offline time? And then daily, what's your offline time, right? From the small fractal to the bigger fractal. Really, really key. Okay, number 9, check your savior complex. It's really easy for light workers to actually be operating from a more ego-driven impulse of being a savior. This is called the savior complex. So check your savior complex. You don't need that in your business. You can't save the world. You can't heal everyone. You aren't meant to. You are meant to be a healing and awakening energy in the world. You are meant to be a contributing voice. All of us are. We're all contributing our voices. We're all contributing our light together to bring more light to the world. This isn't the job of one person. That's old conditioning from a very patriarchal idea that there can be one hero, one king, So I invite you, again, I'm challenging you today to, especially in your business, to look at where you might be operating from this kind of savior complex and just focus on your sphere of influence, right? And knowing that that's enough. And again, if you're still listening and you're not a spiritual entrepreneur, but you're still, that goes for just knowing that if your sphere of influence is your family and your close circle of friends, even that is enough. If you are that person in your circle of friends and in your home that is anchoring in and amplifying the light and choosing to bring more loving kindness and more compassion through with each day to the best of your ability, that is enough. That is more than enough. And for those of you in business, just, realizing you can't save the world. You can't heal everybody. You aren't meant to. So just concentrate on your sphere of influence. Concentrate on those that you can. Yeah. Okay, so that's landing for some of you. Yeah. Real. Good. Okay, and the last one. This is a practice, and this is something that I talk about a lot with my clients. So number 10, and this is the final practice for lightworkers to thrive. And now we're talking about lightworkers in business, right? Value your work. Know your value and value the work you're doing. If you undercharge, for example, usually the reason is, well, I'm new. So, or everyone's so broke, so I'm going to start offering $5 oracle readings. Stop doing that. Because when you do something like that, you undervalue, you devalue that service or that modality for everyone. You don't want to do that. Right? I know the edge of charging for your services. This is why I said going into business, if you are one of the crazy ones like me that have chosen to channel your light work in a sacred business, I know the edginess of charging for your work, but don't devalue it for everyone. Value your work. Know your worth. You got to heal your money story so that your bank account reflects your belief that healers, spiritual teachers, and professional witches and priestesses should be well paid for their essential services to society. Can I get a hell yeah? We are allowed to thrive. I was incredibly moved and humbled and motivated when in 2020, when the pandemic first hit, and there was all this talk and the lockdown, and there was all this talk about only essential services, right? Do you remember that? Or I don't know, that maybe that was the languaging in Canada, but we were saying only essential services are still operational. That my business plateaued for 2 months and then continued to grow. And I thought, that's right. Priestesses are an essential service. Priestessing is an essential service. Thank you very much. Hell yeah. Thank you, right? We have to do the healing work to excavate that old belief that has been conditioned into us, that healing work, spiritual work, women's work, right? Intuitive work, that there's no value to that. And the prices that we put out there can reflect subconsciously how much we are valuing our work. I know this all too well. So please stop undercharging. Please, value your work, and remember that if you truly believe that healers and spiritual teachers and coaches and priestesses and witches and midwives and intuitives and oracles and womb healers and how can I go on, right? That we are meant to thrive, right? We're meant to really sit at our place at the table, not be content with the crumbs that fall off the table, right? We are allowed to thrive. And that is why I titled this talk today that these 10 are essential practices for Lightworkers to thrive. And so if you're in business, your prices need to reflect that willingness to thrive. Even as a beginner, thank you. Yes, even as a beginner, right? Obviously, as a beginner, you're not going to be charging top dollar, right? Like I get that, right? But there's a certain level, like we all know, like kind of like what are other people charging for what we're doing. We can kind of look out there, and then we can feel what we're comfortable with. And I often say that if you're really comfortable with your prices, then add 15% because there's meant to be an edge there, a little bit of an edge, sister. I realized I haven't raised my prices since 2008. Sister, right? Reflect the changing times. Reflect even the inflation in our economy. And how much have you invested in yourself since 2008? How much training have you taken? How much more have you learned? How much coaching have you yourself invested in since 2008? So I am so glad to be here today to say it's time to raise your prices. Sometimes, here's another thing, free business tip for you. Sometimes it's not so much about raising your prices, but in actually putting together more into an actual package. Maybe you stop doing just single one-off sessions, which really don't deeply help people as much as they could, right? And just stop doing the single sessions and to actually say, I work with people for 3 months. Even that would give yourself a raise, right? Okay, so to recap the final 4 that are just for light workers in business is to do the healing work to identify and transmute your witch wound, so you know how this witch wound holds you back in your business. Having strong boundaries on social media, being very clear on your offline time, because also that's when we replenish our well of inspiration, right? So being very clear on offline time, strong boundaries on social media. Then number 9, check your savior complex at the door. You are not meant to save the world. And then finally, value your work. Know your worth. Know that what you're doing is valuable. And reflecting that you believe that what you do and people like you should be well paid, should be able to live and thrive doing this kind of work, being a light worker in the world. All right, my loves, I would love to hear from you. If you feel like sending me a private message, please feel free to send me a private message. But I'd also invite you to share in the comments to let yourself be witnessed by this whole community about what is coming through for you today, what you're realizing. And don't try to do all 10 at once if you're kind of feeling like, I need to do all of them, right? Just really hone in on the 1 or 2 practices that you're feeling that, oh yeah, I really need to do that more so that you can thrive. Light worker, thrive. Awesome. Well, blessed be. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for tuning in to this month's Creatrix Conversations. And thank you so much for being a part of this Earth Song Temple community. So much love. Mwah. Bye for now.